think that's centered. Hey guys, science for the uninitiated. I just want to talk about one thing really quickly before I shoot off. Let's talk about getting exercise in. Exercise is important. One thing that I do want to iterate on this channel is the importance of like aerobic fitness. We have 5, maybe even, I guess you could argue that we have 6 zones of heart rate, and you can monitor each one of these heart rate zones, and you can determine what your training efficiency looks like and which like level of perceived exertion as well that you're initiating. Zone 1 is like your recovery zone. Zone 2 is your fat burning zone. Zone 3, your lactate zone, where you're burning both fat and glucose, fat and blood sugar. What else? Zone 4, you're dipping into a bit of a top end where you're getting into that anaerobic threshold. In zone 5, I don't think there's a zone 6 actually. So at zone 5, you were training VO2 max. That's your max capacity to the extent that you're about to bonk out. What is like VO2 training? VO2 training specifically is how much oxygen or how many milliliters or liters of oxygen that you can breathe in a given time frame, which is measured in minutes. So on Saturdays and Sundays, I really like to hammer some zone 2 training where I'll just go on a long bike ride, and the bike ride usually lasts for an hour, and I'm not taking distances. It's strictly time and it's strictly heart rate. So I'm not stressing myself on what particular course I'm trying to get on. It's just like, hey, I got the amount of time and I was in this particular heart rate zone, which means I'm getting this effect. And usually I'm in like zone 1 half of the time in like at a recovery pace. And a lot of my sessions take place in zone 1, which is generally you'll take the number 220 and then subtract your age by 220. So I'm 26. So that would be 194 would be my max heart rate. And then you take 194, which is my max heart rate, and divide that or multiply that by 0.6 to find out what my zone 1 threshold is, like 0.7 to find out what your zone 2, and so on and so forth. I think that's right. It's definitely right for zone 1 and zone 2. And then when you get into the upper thresholds, it's not, what max feels like pretty much. You can kind of like calculate. You can kind of perceive your way through 3 and 4 based on how hard you're pushing. Zone 1 and zone 2, those are the only 2 that I do the heart rate math with. And moving beyond that, why should you train zone 2? If maybe that's going to be the title of the video. Why should you train zone 2? It's the efficient zone to be training in if you want to burn fat and like excess glucose as well. But mostly fat. So if you're trying to fat burn, you stay in zone 2. If you're efficient in zone 2, then the more fat you'll burn. I have an interesting thing to say about diabetics in that regard. Diabetics are so sore at their fuel economy. They're so sore. They're so bad with their fuel economy that every time that they take a step, every time they attempt to exercise, anytime they attempt to do anything, they're going to be an anaerobic threshold in opposition to aerobic threshold. So that's problematic, because if you're exercising and you're at the top end of the spectrum, you're not fat burning. You're only burning glucose at that point, and you're not burning any of the fat stores that you have. So a type 2 diabetic issue is that you have like too much visceral fat accumulation, fat around the abdominal area, and it's like, fuck, dude, what do I do? Those individuals have to take smaller steps and less extreme approaches to exercise, and they should really, really, really be getting on top of a step count and watching their nutrition for individuals who are already ahead of their health and are well trained, a part of the healthy population, and they don't have metabolic syndrome, which is a part of the next video. This is the unscripted version of the metabolic syndrome video, and the important steps that you could be taking to dampen the effects of metabolic syndrome, get out of metabolic syndrome, and to stave off metabolic syndrome in the future, becoming an older person. So ensure that you're doing zone 1 and zone 2 cardio on a regular basis every single day, up to 150 minutes a week. Beyond that, if you're a type 2 diabetic or morbidly obese, and you're trying to get on a good regimen for working out, let's start with 10,000 steps a day. I'm going to dive into more information on that. We'll dive deeper into the weeds as far as the molecular status on what metabolic syndrome is, what people can do, and what are some actionable steps to be taking. This is Science for the Uninitiated. Thank you.